Hello book fighters, remember my last video how I was like, I didn't really like Moby Dick for a variety of reasons, but I'm not going to talk about that this week? Well, I'm going to talk about it this week. So this video is going to come to you in several parts. I'm not quite sure how many because I actually didn't script this video. First one being, I have a green J scribble. One of the reasons that I mentioned last week was I felt that Moby Dick kind of needed to be edited some, and then Dan retorted indignantly that that would completely destroy the book. But I wasn't so much saying it needs to be edited in that those chapters just need to be cut out and all of that stuff needs to be cut out completely. It's more of a, it needs to be worked into the text better in a way that doesn't make me angry and irritated that it was actually interesting. Why did you stop everything to tell me this? Exception to that being the whiteness of the whale, which I will get to why I dislike that specifically later. As far as the details of whale anatomy and whaling and all of that stuff and the details about sailing, there was way too much in there, and it wasn't so much that I don't find it interesting, because that's actually a thing that I find really interesting. Like, a significantly large portion of the songs in my iTunes are about whales and whaling and sailing and ships and shipwrecks and all of that stuff. So much so that I actually ended up making a Moby Dick playlist. So I should have found this interesting. Though actually now that I think of it, a larger portion of the songs in my iTunes are about alcohol, so that's not actually necessarily a judge of my interest. But the way it was done in Moby Dick just wasn't right. It felt like it was in there for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than Herman Melville saying, hey, look what I know about whales. I know all about all of this stuff that I'm writing. I totally have authority to be talking about this. If you can't establish authority to be writing about a subject in your writing without going on about, look how much I know, then your writing to me is kind of failed. The other thing that really, really bothered me, and probably bothered me more, was the complete lack of any subtlety at all in anything. Like, one time it felt like the amount that I was being told made everything really confusing to figure out what is he actually talking about, but at the same time it felt like I was having everything spoon-fed to me and just everything outright told, and I don't like that. It bothers me. The first thing that I came across that made me swear at Herman Melville in the notes of my ebook was in, I believe, chapter 2. Ishmael is going along and he comes to this inn called, I believe it was the Spouter, and the guy who owns it, his name is Coffin. Which, yeah, that's foreshadowing. Which would have been okay. It's not super subtle foreshadowing, but I'd be okay with it. Except then, what Herman Melville chooses to do, rather than let his text speak for itself, he has Ishmael go up and say, hey, did you see what we did there? Did you see that? Did you notice this? That was pretty good, wasn't it? I'm a great writer. Look what I can do. Foreshadowing. Which, if you have to do that and have to point out everything that you did, you probably didn't do it that well. Overall, I just kind of felt like Herman Melville didn't really trust the intelligence of his readers. Like, I expect it to be stupid, so I need to have everything explained to me. That was why the whiteness of the whale bothered me, because it was essentially, I'm going to tell you all of the symbolism in my book, rather than you figure it out for yourself, like actual decent books that have symbolism but it's subtle. It felt like Ishmael was my high school English teacher saying, this symbolizes this. This is why this symbolizes this. Make sure you remember that because it's going to be on the test. The other thing, subtlety-wise, that angered me and actually made me throw the book across the room at my closet, part about the prophet, when Ishmael and Queequeg are going to get on the Pequod or whatever, at some point before they actually set sail. It's established that the captain's name is Ahab, so obviously this guy can't possibly be good because you named him Ahab. I mean, really? But that would have been okay. I would have been okay with that, except the prophet's name was Elijah. Like, really? 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 It took me completely out of any believability of the story at all, to a point where, oh, wow, that's really convenient. I can... Yes, Herman, I see what you're doing there. Stop! Things that bother me most with any book is when the author talks down to the reader, which I felt like the entire time I was reading Moby Dick. Dan, I will see you on Monday.